Antonio Graceffo, our friend from New York. Yes? His presentation is one word inspired in Chinese education and identity in Cambodia. Please.
各位老师、同学们，下午好，我叫安东尼，我是上海体育学院还有这里经济学院的博士。我今天想讲的题目是关于汉语教育在柬埔寨。So this is because of the One Belt One Road initiative, the Chinese education in Cambodia is increasing. One Belt One Road, it's one of the largest projects ever undertaken by humans. It includes roads, ports, fiber optic cables, and pipelines. But it has many other benefits apart from the economics, which is the part that I normally research. But we have economic growth, we have human development, a resurgence of Chinese identity among the Chinese in Cambodia. So throughout Southeast Asia, we have very large numbers of Chinese. For example, Malaysia has about 38% Chinese population. Cambodia has, depending upon who's counting, anywhere from 1 to 20% are Chinese, depending upon how they're counting. And there's been a resurgence of the identity and of the language. History of education in Cambodia. So Chinese first came to Cambodia in the 13th century, or that's when they began coming to Cambodia. We had Hokkien, Cantonese, Hainanese, Teochew, Hakka, a lot of different regions in China establishing their own dialect groups in Cambodia. During the, Cambodia was a French colony from 1865 until 1953. And during this time, the Chinese dominated the economic sector. They were the merchants, they were the bankers, they were the people with money. So the French traded with them directly, and they gave them autonomy because they were very important to the economy. So they said, you know what, we don't want to interfere, let them do their own thing. They also allowed them to open their own schools. So the Chinese had their own schools in Cambodia. Chinese communities were, Dua Hua Chinese School was founded in 1875. So it's one of the oldest Chinese schools in Cambodia. By 1970, there were 50 Chinese schools in Phnom Penh and 231 in the kingdom. Keep in mind that in 1970, the first, let's say prior to this time, there was only one high school for Khmer students in Cambodia. So the overall education level is very, very low. But then, of course, the Chinese community, they love education. They opened schools for their children. So there were 50 Chinese schools, 231 throughout the entire kingdom. And the Chinese schools were considered to be the best or among the best schools in Cambodia. In 1970, a man named General Lan No, this handsome devil right here, he seized control of the government in a coup. And there was a lot of resentment because the Khmer people were basically poor and uneducated. The Chinese people had a lot of money. The foreigners had privilege. So when the Khmers took control of the government, the first thing they did was they began attacking Chinese people. They closed all the Chinese schools in 1970. 1975, there was another revolution, Pol Pot, Khmer Rouge regime. From 1975 to 1979, all schools in the country were closed. There was no education at all. About 20% of the population was killed, of the whole population of the country. And about 50% of the Chinese were killed. In 1979, when the country reopened, didn't really reopen, but when the Khmer Rouge period ended, there were these boat people, we called them the boat people, who went mostly to America. They wound up in refugee camps in Thailand. They went to Europe. A lot of them were also Chinese. Although they're coming from Cambodia, they were Chinese. So the Chinese population of Cambodia dropped dramatically as a result of these events. 1979 to 1988, Cambodia was a Vietnamese colony. And the Vietnamese also didn't like the Chinese. So they banned Chinese schools. The Chinese schools remained closed. And they had so many government rules and disadvantages towards the Chinese that even Chinese families stopped speaking Chinese because they didn't want anyone to know that they were Chinese. So during this time, the Chinese language in Cambodia almost dies out. 1984, Sino-Khmer population had dwindled to 60,000. They started with, we don't know the numbers, but it's estimated at one point, maybe even 10% of the population was Chinese. And it went from millions to tens of thousands. 1989, Vietnam withdraws from Cambodia. 1992, the ban on Chinese education is lifted. Chinese schools reopen. 1999, there were 6 Chinese schools, and Dua Hua School, the biggest one, at that time they already have 2,800 students. From the year 2000, China begins investing in Cambodia, right? So One Belt, One Road, of course, is not the first foreign investment by Cambodia. We say 2000 to 2005 is when China begins the going out policy, and they begin investing in a lot of countries, also Southeast Asia. And because of this investment, suddenly, it's very important to speak Chinese, and it's good to speak Chinese. Now, I lived in Cambodia during this time period. It was still, for example, it was illegal to have a Chinese name. So Chinese families gave their children local names on the birth certificate, but then they called them by their Chinese name. It was illegal to celebrate Chinese New Year. And the police would go around on Chinese New Year and hit people with sticks and take their red envelopes, of course. And it was getting better, but it was still not great in 2000, 2004. This is the rebirth of the Chinese language begins. People's Republic of China supports Chinese education in Cambodia, and this begins happening around 2000, 2005. Mandarin becomes the primary Chinese dialect in Cambodia. So when I lived in Cambodia in the early 2000s, I had many Chinese friends, but only young people could speak Mandarin. Okay, their parents didn't speak Mandarin. Their parents spoke Hokkien and Teochew and whatever. But after this time, Mandarin becomes the most common dialect. China's One Belt, One Road initiative runs through Vietnam. Now this is very interesting. Vietnam borders on China. One Belt, One Road goes through Vietnam. Vietnam has a significant Chinese population. So what happened? Chinese in Cambodia trade with Chinese in Vietnam. Chinese in Vietnam take the products to China because they border. We call this the bamboo telegraph. Okay, so this is the informal One Belt, One Road. But because of this is another thing that helped to raise the Chinese identity in Cambodia, raise the importance of the language, and I think it helps the Chinese in Vietnam also. The two countries are developing very differently, though, in terms of openness towards Chinese. Today, Chinese schools have increased. Now, the government newspaper controlled by the government in Cambodia said last year, 1/3 of the population, total population, celebrated Chinese New Year. So now not only is it legal, but they've just added it to their calendar. So maybe they added Christmas, they added Chinese New Year, they take from everywhere. But it's wonderful. So about 1/3 of the population, even the Khmer people, they celebrate Chinese New Year now, they enjoy it. Schools have reopened. Duan Hua School, just the one school, has 10,000 students. And I live on the same street as this school, and it's just amazing how many uniforms you see in the street. 2011, Cambodia, so the Cambodian ministry, they said that, so when I lived in Cambodia originally, English was the #1 foreign language, French was #2, and I worked with the government of Cambodia, and we actually used French every day in the office. It was just the normal, everybody spoke French. That's not that long ago, it's 15 years ago. Today, the study of French has dropped to almost nothing. The study of Chinese is increasing. There's an estimate that there's about almost 400,000 students in Cambodia studying Chinese now. Royal University of Phnom Penh, which is the Royal University, of course, is the flagship university for the country. When I lived there, the only foreign languages they offered degrees in were English and French. Today they offer degrees in Chinese. They have a Chinese Studies Center on campus. They have HSK preparation, teacher. Maybe I can go there for my HSK. And this is very interesting. This is a private university called Asia Euro University, and they offer degrees taught in Chinese. So you study subjects which are taught in Chinese. And I think this may be the only one. I think Royal University only offers Chinese language degree, but these guys offer maybe business or literature, which is taught in Chinese. 2010, Confucius Institute opened in Cambodia. It's also a very interesting story. So Confucius Institute opened, and they're offering Chinese classes like they do anywhere else. They're also offering teacher training. So there's a lot of Chinese kids, or Huaran, they're growing up in Cambodia. They go to the Chinese school, they can speak Chinese, and now they can go to the Confucius Institute and become teachers. Okay? And also, very interesting, including 50 government employees were studying at the Confucius Institute. Tongfa Chinese School, they said that this is one of the other biggest and oldest Chinese schools. They said that 5% of their students now are not Huaran, they're just Jianbuzai, Dangdi Jianbuzai, just Putongduran, that their parents think it's better for them to study at Chinese school. So that's really cool. And okay, and the motivation, why? Employment, right? You can make a lot of money if you speak Chinese. I'm running out of time. Okay, this is a bunch of economic stuff. Just trust me, China is very important for Cambodia. Okay, so right now, look at this. Cambodian people who speak Chinese earn 50% more. Okay, if they speak, this is the average wage in Cambodia, it's quite low, it's $140 a month. If you speak English, you get more than double or almost double that amount, but if you speak Chinese, you get more again. Yeah. So we can all go there and earn $300. So conclusion, China's One Belt, One Road initiative has brought infrastructure investments to Cambodia, but has also brought education, Chinese language, a resurgence of Chinese identity among Sino-Khmers, as well as provided employment opportunities for Cambodians.